This is Sister Squish, and I was lucky enough to be invited to try the much anticipated Pax Dei Alpha. Pax Dei describes itself thus: a social sandbox, player-driven MMO experience that will offer you a vast, beautiful playground inspired by the dark Middle Ages, its fables and myths that you will fill with your own stories. And fill it we did, at least for a few days. Many thanks to the Hand of Unity clan for letting me play with them on launch. We were full of excitement as we landed in the province of Meri, the blessed region of Gallia. After creating our in-game medieval selves, Hand of Unity, in true Hobbit solidarity, chose to land in the Shire. I was immediately struck by how beautiful the world was, and how much enjoyment I found in just wandering around the wilderness. My first task, it seemed, was to collect wood and stone to craft an axe in order to defend myself. But there was important planning to be done if our clan were to make a home here. It wasn't long before our magnanimous leader spotted an impressive mountain to climb, and with starry eyes declared that we would make our base at the very peak of that mountain. After many attempts at climbing and falling as we dutifully carried supplies of wood to the construction site, we became acquainted with the game's significant fall damage implication. Super Mario grind surfing down the side of the mountain would lead to a gruesome death. In fact, anything other than a sensible climb along a purposefully mapped path would often lead to at least a clumsy trip that took chunks out of my health. Yes, I thought, this would take a more cautious approach. It didn't help that when I died, I resurrected at the closest shrine on the map, having lost not just my inventory, but the very clothes on my back as well. The game offers a solution in finding your corpse again and retrieving your items. However, when your grave is balancing precariously on a mountain ledge, this can be nigh impossible. And so, eventually it was declared that perhaps a less dangerous home base would be better, and Hand of Unity climbed down that mountain and into the lush riverside valley below. This valley seemed plentiful with clay and reeds for building, and flax for weaving string. Yes, this would do nicely. The clan began to build all crafting stations they would ever need amongst this background. Each member decided on an individual path to take. Some gave into an overwhelming curiosity for the building and created beautiful homes. Some itched to explore what lay before them in the wilderness. A clan organizer graciously built a central hub for storage, complete with baskets that would gradually fill with items that would unlock crafting recipes when picked up. Myself? Well, I simply wished to not be naked anymore. So I set myself the task of learning the tailoring skill, which was possibly the single worst decision I could have made. Yes, I could now make clothes for me and the clan, and this dress was pretty cute. But it wasn't long before I realized what an undertaking every single crafted component would be. Let me break it down. Currently, the one basic resource used for all tailoring is this red fluffy plant called flax. Flax was luckily found in abundance on the banks of the nearby river. However, it is the sheer quantity needed for each craft that created the significant time investment. Take this recipe for cloth hat tier 1. Step 1. Turn 30 flax into 10 coarse linen string. This takes roughly 16 seconds. Do this 3 times. Step 2. Turn 80 coarse linen string into coarse linen cloth. This does not require you to sit still like the string craft does, but it does take roughly 15 minutes to complete. So we can use this time making more string. When the 15 minutes are up, you will have 4 coarse linen cloth. If we return to the recipe, we can see it requires 15 cloth. And so, we repeat steps 1 and 2 3 times more in order to have enough. Overall, this process has taken around an hour. An hour for 1 tier 1 cloth hat. Take a look now at the recipe for a tier 4 chest. It uses 12 tier 4 fine linen cloth. 1 craft of fine linen cloth uses ultimately 6,480 flax. In total, this recipe requires gathering 20,250 flax, and then processing it all. And I did this before the improvements from feedback. That first night, when I sat down to craft enough linen string to make the first loom, the recipe for coarse linen string was 3 flax for just 1 string at a time. 30 of these individual crafts would then be turned into rough linen string, and 30 of those would be upgraded into linen string. I needed 40 linen string simply to build the loom to be able to make cloth in the first place. Plus, there seemed to be some bug where for other professions the speed at which a craft completed increased with skill level, but tailoring remained just as slow no matter how high your skill was risen. All of this to explain why I was there in front of the spinning wheel from evening when we first settled to about 6 a.m. in the morning, creating enough string to build a loom. Thankfully, after a flood of feedback on this very issue, the Pax Dei team were quick to make improvements. Crafting speed was increased, the recipe altered, and a new, cheaper loom became available. At this point, I have to say a big thank you to the Pax Dei team for being so attentive during this alpha and so communicative in their Discord community. They've done a fantastic job implementing fixes quickly and really taking feedback graciously. It is heartwarming to see a team show real care for what they are building in a gorgeous game that seems to be a glowing labour of love. On the second day, I watched with bleary, sleep-deprived eyes as the clan logged in to make a plan to explore the challenges that awaited in the wilderness. The first hostile encounters were wild animals. Badgers, boars, wolves, and even bears lurked in the forests. But I was a little disappointed to find out that I could easily defeat a fully grown grizzly in nothing but my dress. However, I am guessing these animals currently exist simply to give us a source of leather to play with in the alpha. and that difficulties will be more balanced with gear level in future. The second type of hostile encounter are the strongholds, littered around the map. Inside them are hosts of baddies swinging swords or casting spells. Although again, they proved barely a match for our clan warriors. The third and actually challenging encounter were the dungeons, found at these ruin-arched looking symbols on the map. Inside, we are met with waves of undead enemies that could potentially overwhelm you if not accompanied by allies. It gave us a taste of what it would take to stay alive during fights. Healing is most certainly required here. Interestingly, healing and other spells are exclusively tied to unique pieces of gear. These pieces require gems, which conveniently are also found in the loot troves of these dungeons. Alternatively, there is a small chance to find them while mining, although it is quite rare, which makes jewel crafting a challenging skill to level. I will never forget the moment I crafted a spell-imbued chest piece for a clan member, confident that it would be simple, since the recipe was labelled easy for my level. To my horror, the recipe still failed. 5 rare gems had been lost to the void. He was silent for a moment, before turning to me gravely and saying, "For years, no woman has screwed me like this." And he walked away. Casting a spell, however, instead requires regents made from alchemy. I think this is a refreshing change from having a renewable internal mana source to manage. Instead, the focus for combat seems to be in the preparation for it. If you intend to head into a dungeon, make sure to have spell armor equipped, regents to cast, potions, food for stamina, and friends. And yes, swinging a sword, sprinting, chopping wood, pretty much everything uses stamina, but your stamina can be increased by eating foods. There is a cooking skill, but the crafting doesn't seem to work for me, so for now my diet consists of berries and grapes. It's a bit of a shame since I designed and built this cozy room around the hearth for cooking. I do need to praise the building system. It's been so much fun to play with, each piece having lots of freedom for how to place it. There is the much underrated snap on and off toggle, and there is a weight and support system like in Valheim. So you kind of need to experiment a bit with how heavy or tall you can build. I found that building wood walls would allow 2 stories, but with stone supports added to the walls I could manage 3 stories. Apparently, however, building with just stone, you can potentially build 8 stories high. That would be a massive fortress. Likewise, it's been fun working out how to optimize storage while also keeping it visually appealing. Chests, for example, only stack in 2s, and it's been fun getting creative within the limitations like that. I'm so excited imagining possible future additions to the building. Could we possibly weave carpet with our tailoring skill? Could we garden and grow our own flowers? Could we actually sit down in these chairs? I suppose that's where my feedback mostly lies. Little quality of life things. Like an auto sort button for chests. Or the ability to split a stack for when you want to give someone a particular number of an item. Or a way to trade directly with someone, since currently we dump items on the floor in front of them, which leaves them somewhat vulnerable. There are gold coins in the game, and I'm wondering if in the future there will be a more detailed economic system. If that's the case, we definitely want direct trade. Despite my enthusiasm to explore the cozy side of Pax Dei, it only took a few days for the majority of the clan's interest to wane with the lack of combat-orientated goals. But this alpha was not focused on combat. It was exploration of the world, of basic systems, and server capacity, of which I feel they have knocked it out of the park. But this does leave me with a few aching concerns about the future of the world. One example is a spot by the river that I often visited to collect clay that was recently procured and built upon. The clay nodes there then disappeared. Clay is a common component of building foundations and walls and is only found along waterbanks. So theoretically, if every inch of land next to water is claimed and all of those nodes disappeared, would that mean that no one in the world would have access to clay? How sustainable are any of these gatherables really? Furthermore, it's currently hard to guess what the developers plan to implement as an endgame gameplay loop to keep players interested after they've completed their personal building and crafting projects. How beautiful can the landscape really stay if it all becomes littered with abandoned, half-finished projects? Though the Pax Dei team tell us they have a lot planned, so I'm not too worried at this stage. For those who love to immerse themselves completely in gorgeous worlds, this is a game you should definitely check out. And yes, Nod, we did bury you under the floorboards.